thank you first of all on behalf of Simon & Schuster India for all of you, to all of you for turning up in such big numbers today. We are really excited and thrilled. I'll quickly introduce the two eminent panelists today. Of course, these two gentlemen need no introduction, but I'll still keep it short and quickly introduce. I'll first welcome Mr. Veer Sanghvi on stage. A quick introduction. Veer Sanghvi is a columnist and TV presenter, and his career has covered print, television, books. He's been keeping, he kept asking me to keep it short, but you all know him, so a big round of applause for Mr. Veer Sanghvi, please. And of course, I'll call upon our author, Vikas Swarup. He's an internationally acclaimed author. You all know him, whose writing has been celebrated for its plots, memorable characters, profound social commentary. He captured global attention with his very first novel, Q&A, which was, of course, made into the internationally famous film Slumdog Millionaire. And this is his first novel in 10 years, so we are very, very excited and thrilled that we got to publish it. I personally was absolutely honored that I got a chance to edit the book, and I had a bunch of suggestions to him, and the one thing that I came out of it, this whole experience, was the generosity that he showed to not just me, but to the whole team of Simon & Schuster India, and we are all very grateful for that. We are also very thankful to the Honorable Minister here who's present with us today, and the former member of the Lok Sabha, Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi. So with that, without wasting any more time, I leave it to Mr. Sanghvi to take it forward. And could you please unravel the books before that? And you know? Yeah, please.
With your permission, can I just add a few words of thanks? My new novel opens with the line, "The most valuable thing in the world is not money, it is attention." And to have the attention of this packed hall, to have each and every one of you present here means the world to us, to me and to Aparna, my wife. I know many of you have come on my invitation, but more than half have come on Aparna's invitation. But truly, many of my former bosses are all here. So it's very humbling, it's very gratifying, it's also slightly terrifying. But really, I just want to say a huge thank you. I know what busy lives all of you lead, but to take out time to come for a book launch and to listen to this conversation between Veer and me, as I said, means the world to me. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here this evening, for giving me your attention, and I hope that this book will reward that. Thank you so much. And of course, my grateful thanks to Veer for agreeing instantly to be in conversation with me. He's someone that I have admired over the years, you know, the way he writes, and the way he seamlessly navigates the worlds of politics, business, culture, and food, I think makes him truly a unique personality for our times. So thank you so much, Veer, for agreeing to this conversation. And finally, last but not the least, the entire team at Simon & Schuster, they have really stepped up to the plate. Rahul was the first one who read the book and who sort of fell in love with the book and who reposed complete faith in the book. So thank you, Rahul. Because of you, The Girl with the Seven Lives is seeing the light of day. And thank you for your entire team for all that you have done to get this book into the hands of my readers. Thank you. With that, it's over to you, Veer.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is possibly the most star-studded book launch I've ever been to. I've been scanning the hall, searching desperately in vain for an unfamiliar face, but I don't seem to find one. I think that's a measure of the regard and the warmth with which you're regarded, Vikas. Yeah? It's really a pleasure and an honor to do this.
No, maybe many of them have come because they saw that I was in conversation with you.
Pull the other one. Okay, I'm going to start with the obvious thing. I think one of the realities of your life is that the ghost of Slumdog Millionaire is going to follow you around everywhere you go. So let's start with many, many years ago when I first met you. You were then PS to the Foreign Minister.
Well, technically it's called Director, External Affairs Minister's Office.
Yeah,
yes.
There are enough guys here from the foreign ministry who know the difference, which I don't. But you were then regarded as like one of the brightest members of the service, guy who'd go really far, brilliant, urbane, charming. What I didn't know then was that you were an author. So tell us about that part of your life.
So basically, actually, when you met me, the book had not even been published.
That's right.
In fact, Mr. Natwar Singh was the one who released the book when it first came out. So I wrote this book really in 2003, when I was posted in London. And believe you me, before London, my postings were, Washington, D.C. and Addis Ababa and South Africa. And the thought of writing a book just did not strike me at all. If I became a writer in London, it was because of two reasons. One, the fact of being in London itself, which is such a hub for the world of English language publishing. And secondly, many of my contemporaries in the Foreign Service, and some of them are right here, they had started writing fiction. So when I looked at that and I said, these people have produced books, can I also produce a book? So they really acted as an inspiration. And as you know, since then, so many Foreign Service officers have written books that Humphrey Hoxley, the BBC correspondent, told me, I have yet to meet a Foreign Service officer who is not in search of a publisher. I mean, people are even talking about an IFS school of writing, so to speak. But I was very strategic about this project. I said, look, many people write books. And remember, I wrote this book in 2003, when the Amazon 70-30 deal was not available, when the blogging platform was not available, when even the internet was literally in its infancy. I remember all the agents, and David Godwin is very much here, when you sent them your form letter, they all said, please send it only by hard copy. No emails allowed. It was that kind of a thing. So, at that time, to write something and then it not getting published was also a downer. And I was very conscious of the fact that I may spend 2 years writing a novel and it does not see the light of day. It may just continue to languish in my cupboard. So I was very strategic. I said, what I'll do is I'll write 4.5 chapters in 1 month and I'll send it out to 10 agents. And if anybody picks me up, well and good. If not, that remains in my cupboard. I have lost only 1 month and no damage done. And then, luckily, I was able to find an agent after that 1 month. And just at the moment when I found that agent, that very day, I got a call from Mr. Arun Kumar Singh saying that, Vikas, you're coming back to Delhi, and let me tell you, you are being made director in charge of Pakistan. So I said, okay, that's it. There is no way I can finish this novel once I go back to India. So I still had a month left in London. And believe you, I wrote that novel in that remaining 1 month. So technically speaking, Q&A was written in about 2.5 months.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, couple of things. The book, I think everyone knows, is based on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and the Indian version, which actually, I think, went on the air in, 2000, 2001?
In fact, Siddharth Basu is here. We can ask him.
Right.
Siddharth, when did it come?
2001?
July 3rd. This is the guy who created Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. me, what do I talk to him? And Patrick said, look, I have no idea, Vikas, what you have written, but my only words of advice to you would be, if he asks you for money, don't sign.
But you signed a good deal.
Well, as I said, my agent also took me for a royal ride. When I met him, his name was Peter Buckman, and he had an agency called the Ampersand Agency, ampersand as in the and.
Yeah.
And when I met him, my training he said, I want to sign you up as my author. So my training as a diplomat kicked in, trust but verify. So I said, but, I have not seen your name in the writer's handbook, because I have just set up my agency. I said, but, can you tell me who are some of the other authors in your stable so that I should know which kind of company I'm keeping? He said, have you heard of Ian Fleming? I said, James Bond, of course, I've read all of James Bond. Have you heard of Georgette Hare? I said, of course, the Regency Romance. Have you heard of Eric Ambler? I said, Clear Light of Day, I've read all of Eric Ambler. He said, we represent all of them.
All dead.
That is what did not strike me, that all of them were dead.
Yeah.
Yes. And only after I had signed and the book came out and it was accepted by Penguin Random House, then he told me that I was his first client.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he was in partnership with another guy called Peter Jansen Smith. And it was Peter Jansen Smith who was the agent for Ian Fleming and Eric Ambler and Georgette Hare.
How did the movie come about?
So I wrote this book in 2003. Yeah. It went to the publishers in 2003, but they said, this is a big book. We want to publish it with full fanfare and all that. And all our big books are already lined up. So you'll have to wait for 2 years. The book will only be published in 2005. So again, first time writer, didn't have a choice. I said, fine, I'll wait for 2 years. And then in 2004, I get a call from Tessa Ross of Film 4 that we want to make a film based on your book. So I said, how do you even know I've written a book, because it's not in the market yet? Then she said, no, your publisher tipped us off. They gave us a copy of the manuscript.
This is before it was published?
One year before the book has even been published.
Okay.
So they said, we want to make a film on it, and they took away the rights. They asked me to sign on page 72. I signed on page 72 again. I had no knowledge.
Did you negotiate a good amount?
Exactly. I had no knowledge at all of how these things work. I was just happy that, even before the film has, even before the book has been printed, they are interested in making the film. And then, of course, I had no contact with the filmmakers at all. As always happens, for them the Bible is the screenplay, and the screenplay writer is the main guy. The actual writer of the book has nothing to do with them. And only when I read in Dainik Jagran that the crew has been arrested at the Taj Mahal for shooting without permission. That's how I realized, they have started shooting.
So you mean the guy who wrote the screenplay never got in touch with you?
No, he met me. Simon Beaufoy met me at the launch of Q&A, because it was 1 year before. He was the first one who was taken on board, and he made me a promise. He said, Vikas, look, I'll remain faithful to the soul of your novel, but let me tell you, the title will be changed, because there's already a Hollywood film called Q&A, and we will not be able to use all the stories in your book, because our budget is just 10 or $14 million. But he says, I'll remain faithful to the soul of your novel. So at that time, I should have remembered that when somebody is saying that they will be faithful to the soul of your novel, the body can get mangled.
And oddly enough, he kept his word, because there are very significant changes in the movie, and yet it captures something of the book, doesn't it?
No, more than that. You see, the USP of the book, why it became such a huge success, was the unique narrative structure.
Yeah.
It was a new way of telling a story. Nobody had ever told a story through the medium of a quiz show, which I was doing.
Yeah.
So the same narrative structure is copied word for word in the film as well. The only thing they changed was they changed the stories, but they did not change the narrative structure. They loved the narrative structure. And that's why it's a very recognizable product from that point of view.
It's actually a very difficult book to film because of that structure, isn't it?
Yes, and Danny Boyle, I think, made an invention, because in the original screenplay, the quiz show has ended. Jamal Malik, which is the strange name they gave to my character Ram Muhammad Thomas. Jamal Malik has now been arrested, and he's being tortured in a police station. And now he's revealing his stories through flashback. And Danny Boyle said, he says, I don't like the idea that everything is happening in flashback. I want that sense of immediacy. So he said, let's get him arrested on the 11th question. And then bring him back in real time for the 12th question, and that's when Latika will be able to find out, because she's watching in real time, and the two will be united. And I thought that was a pretty nifty trick. It worked.
No? It worked. So when did you first see the movie?
So I first saw the movie. I saw a pirated version downloaded from Pirate Bay. I think 3 months before the film actually premiered at the London Film Festival. And I was there. They invited me to the London Film Festival. It was the closing film, and that's where I first saw this film. And of course, I met the entire cast and crew. That's for the first time I met Danny Boyle, actually. And Anil Kapoor was there, and Dev Patel was there, and everybody was there. And I saw that film, and first of all, it was a very surreal feeling to see, characters who had been living in my head now, sort of captivating people on the big screen. But even then, I did not think that this is going to win the Oscar. Certainly not. And I think neither did the people who
Neither did Danny Boyle.
Neither did Danny Boyle, yeah, absolutely.
And initially, when you're approached by somebody like Channel 4, you imagine it'll be a small budget film, it'll be shown mainly on television. But this turned out to be a real blockbuster.
But you probably don't know this. The original producers of this film were Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers, when final cut was given to them, they said, this is a very well-made art house movie, which will probably, not even earn us the basic expense that we have spent on it. So I think this is going straight to DVD. So this film was not going to be released on theaters at all. It was going straight to DVD. Then Danny Boyle went to Warner Brothers and said, look, I have really spent my blood, tears and sweat on this particular film. I really want it to be screened. So if you don't mind, would you sell your stake to Fox Searchlight? And Warner Bros. Sold 20% of their stake to Fox Searchlight, probably the biggest blunder in filmmaking history, because this eventually turned out to be the biggest independent film success in ever history, ever. I mean, made on a budget of what, $10 million, earned more than
with an unknown cast.
Completely unknown cast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Set in India, which was not
set in India, which was again,
office.
yeah, absolutely.
So when you saw the film for the first time and you saw your characters or versions thereof, how did you react? Did you react as authors sometimes do, saying, these are my creations, but they're not actually supposed to be like this. This is not what I wrote, or did you just get swept away by the story?
No, as I said, we had no expectation of success, so I thought I could be brutal with them.
Okay.
So I thought, Ram Mohammed Thomas was essayed quite well by Dev Patel.
Yep.
I mean, in the sense that, and in fact, Dev Patel's casting was because Danny Boyle came to Mumbai to cast, and all the actors he met, they were, with huge biceps and 56-inch chests. And he says, this is a slum guy who's probably not even had 2 meals, and I want an initiated guy. I don't want these hunked up, puffed up guys. And then his daughter said that, I watched this BBC show called Skins, and there's this guy called Dev Patel, why didn't you look at him? And that's how Dev Patel got cast. So I thought Dev Patel, to me, captured the essence of Ram Mohammed Thomas. But the biggest disappointment for me was, you see in the book, the 2 best friends are Ram Mohammed Thomas and Salim, who's his best friend, and they're both orphans. Simon Beaufort had overdosed on a film called Diwar.
Oh dear, okay.
And he wanted a story of 2 brothers. And that's why in the first draft, the 2 brothers were Ram and Salim. And I said, in India, it does not happen that way. You don't have Ram and Salim in one family. And that's how, and in the film, because it was Diwar, Redux, Salim Malik became a very, very negative character. Whereas in the film, in the book, he's quite a lovable character. Yeah. So that, to me, felt a bit jarring.
Going back to the book, I mean, one of the things people commented on was that there were very gritty portrayals of the seamy underbelly of India, of Bombay. You were a foreign service officer living in London. How did you get that right?
No, again, you see, I had actually never visited Dharavi till that point in time. So when
You never have?
No, I never had. So in fact, when I did my first reading in Mumbai, the first question that was asked was by a middle-aged lady who said, Mr. Swarup, I have just one question. How many years did you live in Dharavi? I said, why are you asking me this question, madam? She says, because I live in Dharavi, and reading your novel, I could smell Dharavi. And maybe, your shanty may have been, 2 streets down from mine, etc. So when I told her that, actually, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I have never actually visited Dharavi. I mean, she was crestfallen. It's like the scales had fallen off, and she was disappointed. How could you write about Dharavi without visiting it? At least visit it now. So that was the first time I visited Dharavi. But look, all of us had seen.
Did it live up to your imagination?
Well, in the sense it did, because I read up at least 6 books about Dharavi. Yeah. And look, all of us have seen slums.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that we may not have seen Dharavi, but in India, the lives of the rich and the poor, no man is an island here. Everybody, even when you're going in a train, it passes through a slum terrain, and you see how people are huddled in 10 by 10, little hutments, etc. So I had seen a slum. I had not seen Dharavi, But I read those books on Dharavi, and then I tried to visualize in my mind's eye that, look, okay, I saw this slum, maybe I multiply that by 100, and I read Dharavi. And I also knew that Dharavi is the center of industry. It's the center of the leather industry in Mumbai, it's the center of the watchmaking industry, all the ladies' handbags, all that is done there. So it was quite a revelation, actually, when I actually went there. And now, as you know, as a result of the success of this film, you have Slumdog Millionaire tours in Dharavi.
Yeah, absolutely. But given your background, which, I mean, we can use and misuse, is fairly privileged, and your life, which was fairly privileged, how were you able to capture so accurately the soul of the characters in this book?
So there, I would only say that all fiction is appropriation. You appropriate characters that you don't own, because that way the only person you know is yourself. And sometimes you don't even know yourself and you need psychoanalysis. So from that point of view, since all literature is appropriation, you need that quality of empathy, I think. That you have to put yourself in the mind of the character that you have created and then try to look at the world through that character's eyes. So I really imagine myself as a completely penurious waiter who does not know whether he will have a roof over his head, whether he will get his next meal, and try to imagine how the world would seem to me through that perspective. And I really wrote from that perspective.
And as we all know, it worked brilliantly.
Well, yeah.
The film was sorry, the microphone keeps going on and off. When the film was nominated for an Oscar, did you think?
Look, I was in Delhi, I was in Mumbai at the time when the Oscars were announced, and it was nominated for 10 Oscars, and it was a very unique phenomenon, because this was the first film ever, I think, in the history of Oscars to be nominated for 10 Oscars with not a single acting award.
Yeah.
There was no best actor, there was no best actress, there was no supporting actor, no supporting actress. But at that, by then, by the time the Oscars came out, the film had already sort of acquired a train.
Yeah.
I mean, it won the People's Choice Award at the Toronto Film Festival. It won the award at, 6 or 7 other festivals. So there was already a bit of a buzz around it. In fact, Danny Boyle's biggest fear was that we have peaked too early.
Yeah.
And that, because, we swept the BAFTAs and everything, and Benjamin Button was the one in competition. Milk was in competition, Benjamin Button was in competition.
Which were much more Oscar-type films.
Exactly. And his feeling was that, Benjamin Button was snubbed at the BAFTAs, it was snubbed at the Golden Globes, so maybe they will repair the damage at the Oscars and maybe we will go back empty-handed. So he really had no expectation of success.
And you went to the Oscars?
I went to the Oscars.
What was that like?
It was amazing. Oscars is exactly like you see on the TV screen.
Really?
You have 10 minutes of ceremony and then 10 minutes of advertisements. So basically nothing is happening in those 10 minutes. People are just networking. So Anil Kapoor would go up and he would chat up Will Smith and he would chat up, Meryl Streep and people like that. That really was what happened. I think he was determined that I will not return from Los Angeles without getting one Western-backed role. And he got it.
He did, yeah?
Yeah, he did. So Oscars was very interesting. I think what I love about the Oscar is it's very democratic. In the sense, the caste system exists only when you walk the red carpet. Film actors, they walk the red carpet and you walk a side carpet. You don't walk with them. But then once you have crossed the red carpet, then, I met Daniel Craig, I met Meryl Streep, I met Will Smith, I met Valentino. You can meet anybody. There is no, in India, Shah Rukh Khan's bodyguards will not allow you to come within 10 feet of him.
Yes.
Unless you are Veer Sanghvi.
Not even there.
Yeah, exactly. But there, as I said, once the red carpet ends, there is no bodyguards, everybody is a guest, you can meet whoever you want.
As Anil Kapoor also discovered.
As Anil Kapoor also discovered. No, Meryl Streep was actually telling the kid actors, they were opening their autograph books, ma'am, can we have your autograph? And she says, I should be asking your autographs,
Really?
Yeah, I overheard her saying this.
Simon Beaufoy won for Best Adapted Screenplay, and when he went on stage, he made it a point to thank you for writing it. How did that feel?
No, that felt really gratifying, that to be acknowledged from the Oscar stage, and that was, I think, the third Oscar. It was one of the early ones, and he was very, very generous. And he called out to me and he says, Vikas, thank you for the book. And, I had promised that, we'll do justice to it. And I think he did. So it was gratifying. But he also said, there are 2 or 3 places that you never expect to be in, and Oscar stage is one of them. Because he also had never been nominated for an Oscar before that.
Yeah. Did you ever feel at that moment, surrounded by Meryl Streep and Will Smith and Anil Kapoor, that you were in the middle of a completely unreal world.
It was.
Am I going to go back now to my foreign service job, or am I going to become a writer?
So please, if you have a phone, look up, just Google Vikas Swarup Slumdog, or just say Slumdog Millionaire Oscars, and you will see there are 25 people on the stage. It's the big fat Indian wedding.
Yeah.
All of them are looking at the camera, except one guy in a bandgala who's looking up, and that's me. And actually, I'm saying, what the hell am I, a professional foreign service officer, doing in the Kodak Theatre? And the surreal thing didn't end there, because once the Oscar ended, it's complete bedlam. Everybody makes a beeline for the governor's ball, who was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was not going for the governor's ball because Aparna was waiting for me at the Sunset Boulevard in the after party. So I stumbled somewhere else and found myself in Jennifer Aniston's makeup room.
Not such a bad place to be.
Not such a bad place to be, yeah, exactly. And Jennifer Aniston looks at me, and she looks at my black bangala, and she looks at the book in my hand, because the only thing I went with was my book. And she said, "So you are the man?" And I said, "Yes, I am the man."
Wow. The whole audience is now very jealous of you. What a
No,
moment.
honestly, and we had a 10-minute conversation. She said how much she loves
And
India.
was she nice? And
She was very, very nice. In fact, soon there was a gentleman with her. I had no idea who this guy was. He was John Mayer. And soon after meeting me, she broke up with him. But anyway, so Jennifer Aniston finishes.
could these events possibly be connected?
I have no idea. I mean, karma, whatever. Anyway, so after our 10-minute conversation, Jennifer Aniston says, "Come, let's go." So she takes me. She says, "Come with me." So I went along with her. She and John Mayer, and then I'm following them. And she goes down a flight of stairs, and we come to a very different area, which I had never seen before. And she gives her ticket, and she says, "Can you call my car, Joe?" And Joe says, "Of course, Miss Aniston." He says, "Please bring Miss Aniston's car." And Aniston's car is brought up. It's like a huge, sleek,
Stretch limo.
stretch limousine. And she gets in, and she says, "Enjoy the rest of your time in LA." And she goes off. And then I said, "Joe, can you call my car?" And he says, "Who the hell are you, sir?" So that was the reality check. I was brought down to reality very fast. And he says, "Please get out, sir, go out. You have to go out that way." So I went out that way.
So when you came back to your foreign service job, were you tempted at all by thoughts of doing more writing full-time, writing screenplays, stuff like that?
No. So, I mean, these offers were there. In fact, BBC said that, we want to do a series of documentaries on slums around the world, and we want you to be the host. Seriously.
Okay.
And my of course, the book people, they drop lots of hints that, why don't you quit your day job and, become a full-time writer and think of the opportunity cost, by being in the day job. And I said, absolutely no. I mean, I did not even consider it for even 10 seconds. For the simple reason that, look, the reason I could write was because I had the security of the day job. That allowed me the luxury of creating in my spare time, because I said, okay, if I fail, I have my day job, and being a diplomat was a fairly good thing to be in, especially at a time when India was the flavor of the world.
Yeah.
And that is why I said, that is the last thing on my mind. I will never, ever quit this. And that's why when they offered me a 2-book deal, I hesitated. I said, I was able to write this book in 2.5 months, and because there was no pressure. But the second book, I'm in a day job, and God knows whether I'll have the time or not. So I said, look, if you say that my next book has to be delivered by 2007, I'm not doing this. Then they said, okay, we will remove that clause. You are free. You can write the book after you in 10 years. We will not bother you. Then I said, okay, then some pressure is good pressure. Then let's do the 2-book deal. So actually, I had never any intention of quitting that, and I'm glad I did not, because, this fame and all this, the success is very ephemeral. It's there today, gone tomorrow, you never know what's going to happen. But the high that you get by representing your country, flying the flag, speaking from a podium at the Security Council which says India, that is a high that, books and films can't match.
Many people in the audience will clap. Yes, they will. But look, I knew you before I even knew you were a writer, and I knew you afterwards. And the thing that struck me after the Oscars was how none of it seemed to have gone to your head. You were still the same person. Did that come naturally, or did you make an effort?
No, I think you have to give credit to Aparna also, who ensured that I was down to earth. There was no... look, I think everybody basked in the immediate afterglow. In fact, the first thing that happened when I was in Los Angeles was I received a fax message from the then External Affairs Minister, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. saying that we are so proud of your accomplishment, both as a diplomat and as a writer, and wish you the very best. And that was so heartwarming. Ambassador Raman Sen, who was then the Indian ambassador to Washington, he sent it to me. I don't know how he found out where I was, and that came to me via fax. So, the fact that my colleagues in the Foreign Service could also, enjoy my success and share in that success was very heartwarming.
All of India shared in your success. It was a really proud moment for India.
No, it did. In fact, Arvind Adiga, the writer of The White Tiger, he wrote to me, he says, Mr. Swarup, when the Oscars were announced, I was in Dharavi. And such a huge cheer went up in Dharavi when, your film won the Oscar, that, we really felt that, as if Dharavi has arrived on the international stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also don't forget, the Slum Dwellers Association of India filed a lawsuit against Danny Boyle and Simon Beaufort and against me.
For what?
For saying that, by calling your film Slumdog Millionaire, you are calling us dogs. No, seriously. And this went to the Chennai High Court. And the Chennai High Court said, this is nonsense. There is no such word called slumdog in the Oxford Dictionary. So obviously this was a figment of the imagination. But they didn't give up. They lost the case. They went and bought 2 dogs. And they named one dog Simon and one dog Danny.
I had no idea. Okay, I'm going to do a quick segue from these stories, as enjoyable as they are, to another story about an underdog, if you want to keep using that term. A person who comes from what? From nowhere, who has a brilliant life, full of interesting adventures, all told in a new book through a series of mini novellas, which is a similar format in many ways, the idea being little stories are told. So when you sat down to write The Girl with 7 Lives, were you conscious of the echoes of Q&A?
Yes. In a sense, I wanted to revert back to the excitement of Slumdog Millionaire. And I wanted to write a similar kind of a book, but with a female protagonist. Because you see, I got addicted after my second book. In 6 Suspects, there were 6 characters, and one of them was Shabnam Saxena, a Bollywood actress. Yep. But she's a very cerebral person as well, she's a buxom beauty, but also, she's someone with brains, and that
wonderful phrase, no? Buxom beauty.
Yeah. But, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed creating that character. And then I experimented full-fledged with a female protagonist in my 3rd book, The Accidental Apprentice. And I think the book did well, and it may not have reached the success of Q&A, etc., but nobody ever made the criticism that, Mr. Swarup, you wrote an inauthentic portrayal of a woman. So that gave me the confidence that maybe I could, once again, create a character in the shape of a woman, but, somebody from the lower strata of society, and the kind of hardships she goes through. And yet, her resilience, I think, and reinvention, I think these are the 2 leitmotifs, I would say, of this novel. Resilience and reinvention.
What struck me was that it's incredibly brave to write a book about a character like this and to write it in the first person, to set it in a world which presumably you're no more familiar with than you were with Dharavi, and to be able to pull it off as a tone. Was that at all difficult to write as this kind of young woman?
No, so there I think, I have to go back again to the first novel, to Q&A. And the longest time I struggled was getting the voice of Ram Mohammed Thomas right. Yeah. I was experimenting at one point in time. I was even setting this novel, 50 years into the future, where Ram Mohammed Thomas is a CEO, and he's now being replaced by a computer. And then he's narrating his stories that, why you shouldn't replace me with a computer because I bring this to the table. But, it did not feel authentic. And then out of the blue, these words came to my head. I have been arrested, full stop, for winning a quiz show. And I knew I had the voice. And similarly, this time, it was not such a big thing. Again, I put myself in the shoes of this woman. She was orphaned at the age of 8. She lost her parents, she lost her siblings. And she's all alone in this world. She has no relatives, no family system, no backup at all. And yet she's able to pull herself by her bootstraps. And that's why, her language has to be slightly coarse. There's no way she can be spouting, Proust or Sartre etc.
Sure.
I mean, she's, as she says in one of the chapters, that all she learned was from television.
Yeah.
You know, and the television is the greatest teacher in the world. So again, I tried to get into the mind of this character and then write from that perspective, and the words just came effortlessly this time. It was not a huge struggle for me.
That was the point I was going to make, that the one thing that struck me, and I finished the book today, was what a brilliant achievement it was to effortlessly sustain that voice throughout so many stories.
Yeah, I mean, that is the hardest part, because, you know, and plus I'm sort of taking her through 7 avatars.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she starts the novel as Devi.
I don't suppose anyone has read the book yet, so I don't want to talk about it because I'll probably give away stuff you don't want me to give away. So tell them what it's about.
Yes, so it's basically about this girl, and she has 7 lives, not out of choice. You know, I mean, people change jobs all the time, especially in the IT industry. Today you are with Oracle, tomorrow you are with SAP. But then your identity remains the same. You just add something in your resume. Whereas in this particular case, because of circumstances, she has had to reinvent herself every 3 years almost. You know, and the idea was, you know, why I like these narratives, because India is such a complex country and such a multidimensional country that by this layered narrative, I'm able to capture slightly more of the Indian reality. Yeah. Than you would through just a unidimensional narrative. So she goes all over the place, you know. She starts her journey in Delhi, then goes off to Punjab, from there runs off to Kerala, from there comes to Goa, from there finally comes to Mumbai. And in capturing the essence of these, you know, various towns and cities, I'm trying to give the reader a little bit of a flavor of the diversity of India also, so to speak.
But I mean, the other thing that struck me was one of the stories is set in Kottayam, another one is set in Goa. The beginning of the book is in a sort of Gurgaon type Delhi area. Then you're back into Bombay. You seem to know all these places well. So from an IAS officer, yes, but an IFS officer, how do you know all these places?
No, so again, I have never been to Kottayam. I just passed through Kottayam on the way to LFP.
So Dharavi type situation.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, these days, there is so much you can, you know, there's Google Maps and there is Street View and all these things. And actually, you know, you should not decry the Google realism. Yeah. For the simple reason that when you visit a place, you just see something and you come away. Google Maps is fixed in time. That building is there. You can recognize the color of that building. You can actually write from that perspective. So from that point of view, I think the number of tools available to us writers is so much. Tomorrow if I want to, I can really write a novel about Ecuador without knowing a thing about Ecuador by just doing the research. I mean, yes, you have to create that authentic backdrop. And for me, that's important. So Elizabeth Kuravilla, who's the publishing director, read this and I said, you know, is Kottayam good? And she said, Kottayam is good.
She's from Calcutta. What is she? But more seriously, there's a chapter, it's called How to Write a Bestseller.
Yes.
And it's about, I'm not trying not to give too much of the book away. It's about this socialite type woman who decides to write a bestseller about a slum. So I thought many shades of irony echoed in that.
Yes.
And unlike you, who seems to have relied on imagination, she brings the slum dweller into her house and observes her so she can write about it. So did you feel the sense of irony about how this woman was doing it and how you'd done it?
No, absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. In a way, it's a satire on this whole phenomena of, you know, trying to do slum life, so to speak. And at one point, she tells this girl, you know, that, you know, I mean, she wants to know what's my relationship with you because I'm neither your servant, nor am I your pet. I mean, what am I? And she says, you are my muse. You know, you are the one who inspires me. And then she points out a picture on the wall, you know, a Picasso type of a painting of a nude woman. And she says, look, like this was the muse that the painter used to paint her. And she says, oh my God, so I'll have to pose nude and things like that. Because obviously she has no idea, you know, what a muse is, etc. But the whole idea, I wanted to bring in the element of authenticity. How do you create that authenticity? You know, so in a way, it's a play also on that. That, you know, some people try to create authenticity through recorded life, through observed life, and some just take the flight of imagination and try to imagine the world as it would be for that person.
In the book, the woman who then writes this novel about a slum dweller, you write, I think with a certain amount of triumph, that the book got really bad reviews and sank without a trace.
It did, yeah, because as I said, that is not the right way. You cannot have a slum dweller in your house and then, you know, mine her experiences for your novel and then hope that that will be authentic, because it will not be authentic. It is her experiences. You know, either then give credit and say, you know, this is her novel written in my voice. But that was, she was not trying to do.
I don't think I'm giving too much away when I say that one of the novellas, one of the incidents is actually straight from the headlines when you read about Porsche crashes and people running over people because they're drunk and running away, the sons of the rich. You have that in your book. There is a sequence that quite closely mirrors the headlines. And yet, you must have written this a long time ago.
I know. I mean, now people, in fact, yesterday an interviewer interviewed me and he said, you talk about the fake degree racket and it's reminding me of NEET controversy.
Yeah.
And I said, when I wrote this, there was no NEET controversy. So, I mean, sometimes that's what happens. Even in Q&A, there is this story about this tragic actress who dies a lonely death, and Parveen Bobby had just died.
Yeah.
And people said, my God, it was so reminiscent of what happened to her. So sometimes, art mirrors life, and sometimes life mirrors art.
In your case, current events seem to adjust themselves to suit your narrative, no?
I don't know, but look, I mean, for me, that's where the inspiration comes from. As I said, even reading one day's newspaper is enough to give you a plot for about 10 different novels, because so much is happening in our country. In Sweden and Norway, the Norwegian ambassador is here, I mean, how much can you write about marriage and divorce? But here, people are, ground zero of human survival. People don't know whether they will get their next meal from, and that's why those stories are so much more gritty than the stories from a very affluent country where, Iceland, I wanted to write a story about Iceland. I discovered they have a murder rate of 1 per 300,000.
So you write it.
But there are Icelandic crime writers, so maybe for them it's a novelty, and they are attracted to that.
There's a section, again, I don't think I'm giving too much away, set in a reform home for women in a sense. And that's full of detail, authenticity. How do you research these things?
No, so basically I spoke to somebody from a reform home. Of course, they were very, very cagey because they said, my God, what are you going to do? I said, no, I'm a novelist. Your name will not be revealed. I just want to understand the structure because, at that time, the reference point was what happened in Muzaffarpur, in the reform home in Muzaffarpur. So that, to me, was the reference point. But there also, I did not want the stereotype. That, if a girl is in a reform home, she will be raped. I didn't want that stereotype because then it is stereotyping. So that's why if you see in that particular chapter, there are two different sections. Once when there's a very kindly,
and then
in charge, and then
over.
when the nephew takes over, exactly.
Okay, I mean, reading the book, which covers this whole spectrum of Indian experiences, the one sort of obvious question is, why do you hate cops so much, yeah? There are just so many bad police.
No, because again, I have to be true to the characters. I mean, name me one slum dweller who loves cops.
Yeah, I don't know that many, I'm sure you do,
but think about it, which slum dweller would love, unless that slum dweller happens to be an informant of the cops. Then it's a different...
Which is also in your book. But your book, the cops are crooks, torturers, rapists.
No. In the third book, there is a very honest cop also.
Okay, not in this one. Not in this one.
There is a very, yes, in this one there is not. But again, as I said, the terrain of the book is such that, and plus, she's committing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. The police of 4 states are looking for her. So there is no way she would be, in love with cops.
Okay. There's one character who you think will be the hero because he's very sympathetically portrayed. And at the end, you say, Salah, he was a cop in disguise. So even he's not.
Don't reveal too much.
But you have actually looked at the world from the eyes of your protagonist, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that is the real, what should I say, the joy of fiction also, the challenge of fiction also. That can you do an authentic portrayal of a character that you have no idea of, that you don't own, who's a figment of your imagination, and yet to create such an authentic backdrop, and to write with that emotional intensity that the reader should also feel the pain, should feel the sorrow, should feel the happiness. Like the bond she has with the dog, for instance. For me, that's a very, very touching episode.
I was going to ask you that. The best character in the book is the dog.
Is the dog, Sheru, yes. Yeah.
So is that because you have a dog you love a lot?
No, unfortunately, dogs don't like me. I have a cat.
So very unusual then to have such a loyal and...
yes, but then we have had dogs, and I also love dogs, as I said.
Because that comes through in the book.
Yes, and I think, that is one of the purest bonds in the world, the bond between the pet and the owner. Because that is, the dog is, his love is unconditional, so to speak. Our human love is conditional. If children don't do well in the studies, we say, okay, we are not giving you your allowance this month and things like that. But a dog's love is totally unconditional. And I think, for me, that was the biggest bond, especially for an orphan like her. And this dog comes, he just comes out of the blue, shares her blanket, and then that bond forms between them, and he becomes a protector.
Yeah. I know this, you must have answered this before, but when you write a book like this, the parallels with Q&A and therefore Slumdog Millionaire are inevitable. Were you worried about that?
No, I mean, this is a totally different book with a totally different character. Yes, in a sense, the narrative structure is somewhat similar because there you had two parallel stories going on.
Yeah.
You had the story of the quiz show and you had the backstory of the character. And here also two parallel stories are going on. There is the narrative of what's happening. He's actually putting up her life for an online auction. So there is that dynamic, and then of course the backstories. So in a way, I would say it is Arabian Nights meets Slumdog Millionaire.
That's one way of looking at it. You asked me this, and I said, I'll tell you when I finish the book. Is it a feminist novel? I think it is. Was that your intention?
Yeah, I think it is. I think she has very fixed ideas, mainly I think because of the kind of interactions she has had with the males in her life till that point, have made her slightly embittered also, in a sense. And that's why I think she has a particular worldview. And she's not unjustified in that, I imagine.
Yeah, okay.
But the important thing is she has agency. And that's what I want to say. A female character has her own agency. She does not see the prism through the eyes of, her male protectors or whatever.
And life deals her the worst hand possible, and yet she makes something of her life.
That's why the resilience and the reinvention.
Are you nervous about how the book will do?
No, I mean, so far the feedback has been good. And look, Aparna read it, and she's the very, very fierce critic, and she said, I like it. So, that to me was reassuring.
Did she say that after Q&A as well?
Yes, I think she didn't know I was writing Q&A because I wrote it in complete secrecy. Yes, she got to read it only after the book had been accepted for public.
You kept it from everyone?
I kept it from everyone.
Including people with Dharavi. But the obvious thing that I thought when I read the book, when Slumdog Millionaire Q&A was an era of movies, as we were discussing. This is an area of mini-series. This is a mini-series waiting to be written.
I think so, yes. And in fact, already people are approaching me. Somebody has, a producer in Hollywood is also looking at it. So a lot of conversations are going on. But look, I am being deliberately cagey at this point in time. I want this book to come out, for people to read it, appreciate it. And then, having had the experience of my second book also being made, I am wiser now. And I think for me, what is important is that the integrity of the project, that my entire vision goes through into the transition. I mean, something will be lost. Always something is lost.
That's the nature of the different
that's the
mediums,
nature. But, I have to ensure that, only the bad parts are lost and the good parts are not lost.
Did you have this in mind when you wrote it? Because it's a very visual book. You can almost see it happening on in your mind screen.
No, but the way I write is I first visualize that scene in my head and then I translate it onto the page. So in the sense I have a visual imagination, but what I write are books. These are not screenplays at all, and I do not write with the intention that one day this will be made into a film. So let's put in this element, let's put in that masala. No, because then I won't be true to the book itself. It will neither be a good book, neither will it be a good film.
And the inspiration, there's a thing about a godman in Punjab, not a million miles removed from Ram Rahim, etc.
Rahim, Rampal, Asaram, take your pick.
So you were inspired by the headlines.
No, absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying. That is the inspiration for me. That is the inspiration. And why also I also try to delve deep into what is the appeal of these godmen. And one of the characters says that people want a god that they can touch, that they can hear, who can put his hand on their head. They want a physical god. They don't want this metaphorical, allegorical god that you just worship in a temple. They want a physical god, and these godmen provide that. And that's why their appeal. I mean, this particular stampede in Hathras, people were trying to pick up the soil on which he had just moved.
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
There's also a transgender character in the book.
Yes.
Yes? Was that something you'd always wanted to do? It's a quite daring.
No, as I said, these characters just come to me naturally, organically. It's not that I say, let's put a transgender character, let's put an LGBTQ angle. No, it's nothing like that at all. Somehow the entire thing comes to me as a package. That this is going to be a journey.
So what's the process? When you sit down, do you have the whole novel in your head already?
No, not immediately. As I said, I let it simmer in my head for maybe sometimes 6 to 7 months.
Okay.
I draw out all the character. Because you see, at the end of all my novels, there is a surprise. there is a, revelation.
Yeah.
And that has to be embedded very, very carefully. Because if you give away too many clues, at the same time you have to be fair to the reader.
Yeah.
It cannot be a Benam kind of a thing where out of the blue somebody is labeled as the murderer who was not there in the entire story at all. That is cheating, So you have to give the right clues and yet hope that the reader will not be able to find them, and then we'll get a surprise at the end.
Okay, I'm going to throw this open to the audience, but before we do that, I strongly urge you, if you haven't read this book, and I imagine most of you have not, please get it. It's a remarkable achievement because it's in many ways a serious book. It deals with serious themes. It deals with the nature of India, the nature of privilege and the lack thereof. And yet, it's a really thrilling book. It's a real page turner. So congratulations for having
Thank you. Thank you. We're coming from you, really. That's the highest compliment.
Okay, let's, I usually say when I ask people, please get up and identify yourself. With this audience, I don't think you need bother. Just get up and ask your question. Yeah, Pawan, you want to start?
Kishwar. Okay.
Now, because you're writing on a feminine character, what was the extent of your field work?
Being married to Aparna for 35 years.
I just want to narrate a small
Yeah.
incident that when the Oscars were announced for Slumdog Millionaire, I was at the Jaipur Literature Festival.
Yes.
Were you there?
I was there, yes, exactly.
And we had taken a table, Gulzar Saab and I, sort of hidden from the normal crowds that harangue him. And we were having a rather peaceful drink, discussing some things when the announcement came. And after that, I never saw him that evening.
No, I was chased by reporters actually. They were chasing me actually.
And nor did I see him because he also got an Oscar for the...
No.
Congratulations, Vikas.
Thank you, sir.
Kishwar?
Well, basically, great job, another book, but I want to know why you keep running away from your own character as an MEA officer.
Yeah.
And when are we going to see the book on an IFS officer and the novel that you're going to write then?
Because that will not be as thrilling, I mean, in my books I have more
Very exciting job.
I think it's a great
Minister
job.
Jaishankar will tell you IFS life is very staid, boring, normal, Yes, I have had thrilling aspects. I was once told, I was posted in Ethiopia at that time, I was told to go to Djibouti and charter a plane. No Air India plane is coming. Charter a plane from anywhere in the world and send it to Eritrea to rescue Indian professors who were, who were feeling very threatened because of the Ethiopia-Eritrea war. And I had to actually negotiate with a bunch of Somalian pirates who run a dodgy airline called Dalo Airlines. Antonovs and Tupolovs.
This is the story we want to hear.
Why aren't you writing about this? I'm fascinated.
In the foreign service also, one has had those experiences. In my very first posting in Turkey, I was sent to the Turkey, Syria and Iraq border to rescue Indians who were coming. So in the foreign service, we've had our fair share. But look, at the end of the day, I feel constrained by real life. Whereas in fiction, there are no boundaries. You don't even have to follow the laws of physics if you don't want to. And that's what I love about fiction, the freedom that it gives you. At the same time, I think, inspired by Minister Jaishankar, a book about geopolitics from an Indian perspective is also something worth doing because, so far, most of the works about India are through a Western prism. Yeah. But, to look at India through our own eyes, our own lived experience, and to see how we look at the world, I think is equally important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're waiting for that.
Oh, yeah.
Young diplomat is hero. Yeah, in the book.
Young diplomat as hero. In fact, a film called Ulaj is coming in which Janhvi Kapoor is playing a young diplomat. She's the Deputy High Commissioner in London. And they consulted me for, some of the sort of scenarios. Although I'm pretty sure, don't blame me if it is completely zany and, has no relationship to reality at all.
Okay. Somebody else with a question? There's a hand going up there. Yeah.
Dr. Dudeya.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Swarup, you are very imaginative. You may be knowing E.T. alleles. So are you trying to write on some space work? Space?
Space-based work.
Yeah.
Science
On
fiction.
some space or some beyond place?
Beyond Earth.
Yeah.
No, so far, my imagination does not extend to outer space. I think I'm very happy dealing with humans on this planet. But what interests me is AI. Artificial intelligence, I think, is going to be the next frontier. And I am convinced, I was just reading Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Closer. And there he says that by 2029, we will have artificial general intelligence. And once we have artificial general intelligence, then I think it will be a complete game changer. Because already you see, AI has cracked the operating system of humanity, which is language. And once you have artificial general intelligence with this operating system already cracked, then maybe the next frontier is, you'll have Pulitzer Prize winning novels written entirely by AI, or Oscar winning films generated entirely by AI. That's the next frontier.
Are you looking forward to that?
I'm not looking forward to that. Yeah.
I will get you. All right, somebody else? Sir, we'll get you a mic.
Mr. Ashok Motwani.
I just want to narrate an incident. If you recollect, you are in Washington for your book release, and in that program, Indira Nooyi was there, Hillary Clinton was there, where publicly she said, if I had a speechwriter like you, then I'll be the next president.
Hillary Clinton didn't say that, Indira Nooyi said that.
No. I have a recording.
No, Hillary Clinton did not say that. I was there. But she got a copy of my book. You see, soon after meeting me, she fell down and broke her leg. So she was laid up. You have this effect on people. Yeah, she was laid up, and she probably read the book because she sent me a very, very nice letter after that. Yeah, and Gayatri, who's here, she was Joint Secretary Americas at that particular point in time. Yeah.
Okay, somebody else, question? Yeah.
Dr. Shiv Serene.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Serene. If I can achieve even half the success of your book, I'll be very happy.
Thank you. Knowing you for long, I thought you were a God-loving and God-fearing person, but I found in the prologue something which made me stir. And what I want you to comment on is, over the years, life has taught me 3 big lessons. There is no God. Everything is chance, and take your chances when you get them. Tell me, it is today your chance, and what is the message you want to say? There is no.
No, again, you see, I'm imagining the world through her perspective. She has lost her parents. Why would she have a belief in God? What has God given to her? She has nothing. So obviously she has lost faith in God. She believes that this is all nonsense. Because her mother was a great believer in God, and she says, what did that get her?
So this is from the girl's perspective.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. When I'm writing, it is not me, it is my characters, and that's why to say that I am an atheist because she is an atheist, I think would be wrong. In the previous book, The Accidental Apprentice, Sapna is the most God-fearing person. She, in fact, meets the CEO who changes her life in a temple, in the Hanuman temple in Connaught Place.
Wow, that clarifies me. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Somebody else with a question? Yes? Yes. We just get you a microphone.
Shailesh Pathak.
Yes, of course. He is the Director General of FICCI.
Okay.
And he says he is coming here as a Pathak.
Yes, I'm a Pathak, so a national connection. You began by saying that there's an IFS school of writing.
There should be. People have started talking about an IFS school. That's what I'm saying.
I can see so many IFS officers who've written here.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see very few IAS officers. But now that you've made your intentions about cops clear, I hope there's no IPS school of writing.
Well, there is. In fact, that's what happened. You see, at the Jaipur Literature Festival, they asked me to moderate a panel with 4 IPS officers who had written books. And I said, why does IFS get a bad rap? The IPS is equally prolific. They're also writing books. And plus, you see, their world is so much more glamorous. And, it is so much more cutting edge because they are dealing with gangsters and
funny view of the world
and mafia.
IFS is not glamorous, the IPS is glamorous.
No, there's a difference. We are kissing the hands of princes. They are actually meeting rapists and murderers and, that's glamorous. Come on. There is a huge difference.
All right, good question. There was a lady, sorry, ma'am, yeah, please, sorry.
Hi, Bina Rabani.
Hi, Binaji.
I'm really thrilled to. I loved your book. I loved the movie. I think I saw it 3 times, and I could easily see it again. I'm intrigued about I have one question regarding the movie. Converting that book into the movie and enjoying the amazing success of it. If you had to give credit to one person who was responsible for your book turning into this enormous success story, is there one person you would give more credit to than anybody else, other than yourself, of course?
Of course, me.
In fact, look, when I went to the Oscars, I went only with my book, and I got everybody to sign there because I knew this was the last time I was meeting. And Danny Boyle wrote on this. He said, without this, there would have been nothing. So yes, the writer is important, but look, at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. I mean, the writer writes the book, and then it's the film people who convert
You're the
it.
given, but over there,
Look,
you have
I
to give
think,
credit to...
you know, this old adage, it takes a village. So I think there also, you know, to say that it's just the director's vision, I think is not correct also. You know, a film is really such a collaborative project. And I think that's the big difference between writing a book and directing a film. Because a book writer has so much more freedom. You know, you can write whatever you want. You are not bound by anything, you know. I mean, publisher accepts it, doesn't accept it, to hell with it. But a film director, you know, has to follow what the producer wants, you know, what the actor wants, you know, all those things, all those inputs have to go into it. And that's why I think a film is almost by committee, so to speak, you know. It's a much more complicated thing. But, you know, at the end of the day, it is the director's vision. But actually, having read so many screenplays, I can actually say that it's the screenplay writer who's the most important, because the director is actually only following the cues left by the screenplay writer. And in some screenplays, the screenplay writer has even written cut from the top, you know, the jig comes here, you know. He's even giving you the visual clues as to from where the shooting has to happen, where is the camera to be panning to which person. So the screenplay writer, I think, and that's why the screenplay is the Bible for the film.
That was my guess, and
Yeah,
I was questioning...
it's the screenplay.
Okay, so it is a screenplay.
It is the screenplay,
After
yeah.
that.
You never actually answered a question, which was, apart from Vikas Swarup, name one person who was responsible for the success
So
of...
Simon Beaufoy,
Simon Beaufoy?
Yeah, he wrote the screenplay.
Not Danny Boyle.
No, Danny Boyle, as I said, realized the vision of Simon Beaufoy, and I think he had it his own thing. That's why probably, I don't know whether it says Simon Beaufoy and Danny Boyle or not, I do not remember. But certainly, I think Simon Beaufoy, because without that screenplay, there would have been nothing. I mean, many people think that, you know, the first person who comes on the project is the director. The director is the last person to come on the project. The first person to come on the project is the screenplay writer. After he has written the screenplay, then it is chopped around to which director can give vision to that screenplay. And then, you know, some directors add their own vision, and that's why the screenplay credits always generally also show the director.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Manoj.
Good evening, everybody. There's a rather practical question. I worked for ONGC for a very long time. And,
ONGC?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm Subhash's batchmate. And I retired 2 years back, and then I started following my passion, one of which was writing a book. So this is a very practical question to you, because I was struggling. I wrote a series of short stories, and the title was All Doors Armed. It was about my international travels and the kind of experiences that I had. And I was struggling with how to get it published, what to do about it. So ultimately I found Amazon. It is on Amazon, but nobody has read it. I gifted to so many people. I kept the cost very low so that, you know, the proceeds could go to charity.
Right.
So I'm requesting all my friends, mailing it to them. So my practical question is that I think it's a very interesting thing about international travel and my, you know, interactions and all that. How do I get it published? How do I get people to read about it?
You know, Manojji, there's an old adage that says, any fool can write a book. It takes a genius to sell one. So really that's it, and particularly in today's world where we are inundated, you know, I mean, we are in the attention economy. That's what I said, my book starts with that line. We are in the attention economy. And in that attention economy, the most valuable thing is attention, because, you know, information is no longer in short supply. We are inundated with too much information. On average, we are seeing 10,000 ads per day now. In the 70s, it was 500 or 600 ads. And that's why in the attention economy, how do you get attention? That is the key. And that's where I think marketing comes in. Even a bad book, if it is marketed well, can become a bestseller. And even the best book, if it is not marketed at all, can completely fall by the wayside, and nobody will get to know about it. It does not matter. Short story, long story does not matter.
He's taken your word about marketing.
Exactly. I think what matters is how well you are. I mean, look at the example of Amish. I mean, Amish was rejected by everybody, and then he started placing, you know, his book at the counter where the sales counter. And that's how, you know, because he said at point of sale, people can look at a book and suddenly they may say, okay, let's buy this as well. And that's how the book got into the consciousness of people and started selling. So I can only say, you know, read up books on marketing, etc., and discover the right tips and tricks which can sort of... Most welcome.
Okay, last question.
I never need a mic, I'm a loud mouth. Because you became a success as a writer about midway through your professional career as a foreign service officer. Did your success as a writer, how did that affect your professional career in media?
Yeah,
Good question, yeah.
Exactly. No, I think the two. On the one hand, you see, writing is very, very different from diplomacy. In the sense, fiction writing is very different from diplomacy. Unless you imagine that all of us are writing fictional reports in our political reporting, etc. So, in that point of view, it's very different. But what is important is that these days, if you become a success in one particular field, then it opens up so many doors for you. And the example I always give is when I first arrived in Osaka in 2009 as Consul General of India. The governor of Osaka generally used to meet consul generals, newly arriving consul generals, after 3 or 4 months. Because, enough consul generals would have come, and then he would say, okay, now get them all together in one room and I'll finish them all off. But, the day I arrived, I got a message from his office, the governor is keen to meet the writer of Slumdog Millionaire. So can you please give an appointment? So, that's an example that, many more doors open up for you as a success of this. And plus now, you see, Indian writing in English itself is seen as part of India's soft power. It is seen as one of the cores in our arsenal of expanding India's international footprint, so to speak. And that's why, being a successful writer is, I think, also good for being a diplomat, because then, as I said, many more avenues will open up for you. I mean, in Japan, I got invited to at least 50 universities to lecture. And I always said, I will not lecture on Slumdog Millionaire, I will lecture on India, and you can ask me a Q&A about Slumdog in the Q&A part.
I'll end this by taking off from something you said. You said any fool can write a book, it's selling it, and marketing is the key. But doesn't your own career prove the opposite? Because you're the kind of guy who doesn't push himself, who's not aggressive, is not hustling, is content to let...
That's why I have also referred to as the India's best-selling writer that nobody has heard of.
Well, not after this book, yeah? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.